Have you ever thought that the most valuable work you do every day is the work nobody even notices? Let me explain. Today I want to talk about a recent discovery I made while developing an ongoing art piece of mine. I like to call this discovery the invisible work, highlighting the chores without which nothing would get done, even hardly even notice it. These are motions, often silently and often go unrecognized. They happen every day. They hold families, relationships, and the whole families together. Let me take you back to Hungary in the 1970s. There was a systematic and comprehensive design research project during that decade in which they photographed every single stage of a dishwashing session. These images were used to plan the new standardized kitchen sink. Think about that. Everyday movements shaping not just the physical form, but the social and spatial system. An artist named Esther Agnes Szabó responded to the story in her own way. She recreated an embroidered artwork tracing the outlines of this dishwashing process. It became a monument of the invisible artwork, serving as a tribute to movement that once shaped our homes and continue to shape how we live today. Many things designed in that program are still a common part of Hungarian lives, including the flat layouts, the kitchen in them, the plates in those kitchen, and the motions of the washing on those plates. In the side, you can see her finished artwork, and the bottom, you can see the making the artwork. I invited Esther to the Motion Lab, and I recorded her to show her artwork. So the very act of making the monument became a part of our archive of invisible work. Using the Motion Laboratory gave me a great opportunity to make my own version of these records. We use 3D camera technology and a custom-made software to capture these movements. We have then generated virtual sculptures from these motions, which have been printed onto glass of sheets. Here you can see the traces of her movements. The color indicates the passage of time, for example, red fading into blue. This may look like an abstract drawing, but I see them as a concrete. They are the living imprints of bodies in motion. But where did this idea came from? One of the inspiration was the Battle of Cascina by Michelangelo. When I first saw it, I didn't just see figures. I saw choreography. I saw movements. I was so fascinated about this. I recreated in photography. I moved through the images using long exposure, pausing each phase and flashing the light to mark the rhythm. I even attached light bulbs to my body, followed the path of my motion. I wanted to understand, how can a human body carry space and time? How does it draw with motion? The same question brought me here in the Motion Laboratory, where I spent a full year in artist residency, and I invited 13 participants. Each person did something they usually do, like cooking, cleaning, nursing, and so on, and we recorded their movement in 4 different ways: photography, video, 3D point cloud, and the motion capture system with 16 cameras. During one recording, Anikó Illés, a research psychologist and a university teacher, was cooking tuna fish noodles. And why specifically tuna fish noodles? Because it's a familiar meal for her, a fast home-cooked dinner. But also because it represents something deeper, care. The act of preparing the dinner after a long day is a moment of invisible work. The work that we expect, the work that holds the household together. These repetitive gestures are full of meaning, full of value, even if they are often overlooked. The most touching recording was a mother and her child. The baby was begun to cry, and the mother started breastfeeding him, and naturally start walking around the laboratory, rocking him gently. And later, when I printed these moments onto raw steel, I realized something interesting. We had a similar motion capture from a curator who was pacing while talking on the phone. 2 entirely different contexts, but the same choreography and of focus and care. Next, I recorded an actor and dancer, Bence Mezei. He told me that he loves mopping and laying the laundry. That's what he wanted to capture. His pride in this task felt powerful, because it's often still seen as a women's work. It reminded me that invisible work is not a gendered issue, it's a human one. Bence's emotion became a swirl of gesture, transformed into sculpture, into prints, into a quiet celebration of attention and grace. Another participant was Victor Seri, a dancer, a choreographer, a media designer. When I told him about my story, he said, I have a nice choreography for cleaning Airbnb shower cabins. And he performed it for us in the laboratory. The movement became a layered abstract print, a vortex of line that mapped the invisible architecture of body in motion, doing tasks that no one ever thinks to honor. This 3D printed sculpture is a time-based data visualization of the cleaning Airbnb shower cabin. What unites all these stories in one thing: visibility, or more exactly, the lack of it. We live in a world that values its loud, measurable, and monetizable. But invisible work, the kind done at home, the kind done for caring, the kind that's never get the spotlight, it's a foundation of everything else. Art for me became the way to reframe these acts, encourage the audience. Look it again. The plate you're washing, that's a gesture passed through generation. That sweeping motion you are doing, that's a line, a written, a trace. This project lives in an intersection of art, science, and based on a research, collaboration, and technology. But its core, it's about empathy. It's about seeing the human, what we take for granted. So here is what I ask you to do. Tonight, when you go home, observe. Note the way someone, how they wipe the table, or how they fold the towel, how they vacuum the room while thinking. These are not just plain chores. They are different choreographies. They are the living archives. And if you can make these movements visible, then this project is not just an artistic experience, but it becomes a communal one. It opens up a new language, how we're thinking about work, about our bodies, and about each other. When you go home tonight, pick a movement and watch it. If you still remember it, tomorrow, you make the invisible visible. Maybe the real masterpieces aren't hanging in a museum, but unfolding quietly between kitchen counters and laundry baskets. Thank you.